Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the show. Today is another special guest episode, and I'm delighted to have on Dr. Sherita Gaskins-Tillett. Dr. Gaskins-Tillett is a board-certified OBGYN and the founder of Level Up Lady Doc, where she helps women physicians rediscover their bliss and reclaim control of their lives. She is also the host of a weekly internet show, Level Up Live, which I encourage you to check out, where she showcases women physicians who are making phenomenal contributions both inside and outside of the exam room. Dr. Gaskins-Tillett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Megan. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, I always invite people to start off by really just kind of sharing their story of burnout, how we find ourselves in the position of feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, because it looks a little bit different for everyone, although there's often a common theme. So if you wouldn't mind just kicking us off with your story.
Sure. So my story kind of begins in 2014. And really, I did not recognize it as burnout per se at the time. I just knew that things were really off kilter. And so in probably a 2-year span of time, I'd gotten married, had a baby, moved twice, and my grandmother had passed away. So there was a lot that was going on. And at that same time, I was also facing a change in my practice. We'd run into some issues, and I was needing to get a new job. So all of that coupled, all of those things kind of came together to create this swirl for me. And I was sitting on the beach in Jamaica on vacation with just my husband. And I realized that my life was out of control, and I didn't even recognize it, because so much had changed that it in such a short time that I didn't recognize my life anymore. And it was then that I said, okay, this is not healthy. I am not well, and I need to figure out how to get well.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of life changes kind of happening all together. And I hear life was kind of unrecognizable. If you wouldn't mind describing that a little bit more, like what were you noticing? Like what thoughts were coming to you as you're sitting in this beautiful place?
Well, yeah, even just the demands had changed so much. I went from being a single person who only had to be concerned for herself. I didn't have to think about meals for anyone else. I didn't have to think about anyone else's schedule. When, I didn't have to plan my sleep around anyone else. And all of a sudden I had to plan all of those things, around 2 other people, not just one, and then, of course, babies, they want everything. They have no respect for anything.
No respect for any schedules whatsoever.
None. So, so when I thought, those kinds of things kind of, just made me feel off kilter, like I said, and then needing to change jobs. When I went to my practice, straight out of residency. And it was a practice where people had been for a really long time. And I saw it as my dream job. I thought that I would be there until I retired. So I had no plan whatsoever of changing jobs. I thought I'd found nirvana on the first go round. And so when things started to change in the practice and it became obvious that I needed to make a change, that too, was really disturbing and upsetting because I had to completely reevaluate my life.
Yeah.
So all that to say, everything's changing on all levels at one time.
Yeah. And that can be a really disorienting experience for many of us. I think, we put in so much effort to get to that place, right? Where we're an attending and, especially if you're in a scenario where you have your dream job, and then things change, things that you may have no control over, right? I assume that getting married and having kids was your your control, right?
Right,
But
sure,
the
sure.
practice changing were not under your control. So tell us a little bit about kind of your experience of sorting through those changes and thinking about how you wanted to respond to those changes.
Well, I saw the change in the practice as an opportunity, because like I said, the demands on my time had really shifted from
Mm,
what they had been. And um, I was making it work, in quotes, making it work,
yeah.
trying to figure out how to take call and, because I did not cut down my schedule at all when I had my daughter, but figure out how to take call, how to be full spectrum OBGYN, and manage these new responsibilities. And so when it became obvious that I had to find a new job, I thought, well, why not find something that may suit my lifestyle a little better, that may fit
Mm,
into my life better. So at that point, I actually transitioned into a hospitalist role.
okay. And would you say, just out of curiosity, would you say that because your life had changed, that your needs changed, or that things had changed in the practice so much that it kind of was no longer your dream situation, and that was the opportunity to think more about, how things sort of fit into your life?
Yeah, I think it was probably both.
Mm,
I think, certainly the practice changed that I needed to not be there anymore.
yeah.
So that was kind of a hard stop. But at the same time, I also recognized that I was trying to keep pace with a life that no longer really served me. And
Mhm.
so I saw that as an opportunity to, craft a life that fit me rather than me trying to fit my life. I felt like my life was running me and I wanted to regain control.
Yeah. And a lot of people that I talk to, with kind of similar experiences, experience some challenges with confidence, right? The kind of confidence in themselves to be able to make those decisions, to be able to prioritize their life. Did you encounter any struggles with that?
Confidence, I would say probably not so much, but just being a fish out of water,
Mm, mhm,
because I had been in my practice for 7 years at that point, and it was, very familiar, very comfortable. I knew, I am an OBGYN, so I knew all of the nurses on labor and delivery. I knew the people in the operating room. I had a community and a family. And
mhm.
so it can be disconcerting for sure to change everything, to go to a different environment, where you're the new kid on the block and you have to learn, where everything is, where the
Where the
supplies
bathrooms
are.
are.
When you're in the OR, nobody knows you, so they don't know what gloves you want. They don't know what suture you want. It's a
Yeah,
completely different thing to go from being really comfortable to being new.
yeah, yeah. And how did you go through the process of um, sort of recognizing what specific changes you wanted and then looking for those opportunities? Because I think that's another area where people struggle is they sort of realize that where they are doesn't fit them anymore, but they don't really know, how do I make a start in finding out what does fit me?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. How do I get where I'm trying to, to where I'm trying to go from where I am?
Mhm,
And really, it was for me, it was a lot of soul searching, and I took time to myself.
mm,
And so what I found was that my life was so chaotic, at baseline, that I really didn't have time to think or spend time with my thoughts to
mhm,
figure out what I wanted. And so I needed to take time alone to really sit and evaluate my life, to look at my schedule, to think about what my priorities are, to think about what I wanted my life to look like. So I actually sat down with paper and pen and wrote out what I wanted my day to look like.
mhm.
And then trying to figure out, okay, so I want this day that is ideal, but I'm an OBGYN. How on earth do I reconcile these two things,
Yeah,
this life and this piece of paper? Because this piece of paper is what I want, but this life is the one I'm living right now. Yeah.
yeah.
But to kind of move and begin to make plans to move in that direction.
Yeah.
And so I'll say I'm not completely I haven't satisfied the entire list, but I'm
Yeah.
getting close.
Yeah. And I imagine that the list itself keeps shifting a little bit because of course, we can do that process and decide, okay, I want these things, but if we come back to it, 6, 12 months later, it may be slightly different at that time, or it could be hugely different.
Right.
But it's not ever a done, kind of situation.
Absolutely. I think it's the kind of thing, with my group and some of the things I do, I actually encourage people to look at their priorities probably every 3 months or so,
Hmm.
because you do need to check back in with yourself and figure out if this thing that you thought was a priority is still a priority. Are you still working toward that, or is there some new goal
Hmm.
that you're trying to reach?
And did you end up at that time, kind of in these initial stages, did you end up having any support from anyone outside of yourself? Or was it really for you kind of taking that reflective time for yourself and really sitting down with paper and pen?
It was me taking the reflective time, but in hindsight, I wish I'd been more transparent.
Mm,
I felt like this was a problem I needed to solve on my own.
mm,
And at that time, that was probably around 2016. And I think physician coaching was a fairly new thing, or not anything that I was familiar with. I didn't think I needed a therapist per
mhm.
se. I didn't know anything about life coaches. So, it was kind of me paving my own way. But in
Yeah,
hindsight, I think I could have gotten farther faster if
yeah,
I'd had support.
yeah,
But again, I was not real transparent. I didn't let people know that I was having this internal struggle.
yeah. And I think just from my experience at that time too, yeah, I don't think people were in a very open phase. It didn't seem in my circles of sharing, the struggles that they were going through or that they were considering changes. It seems like that has come along a little bit. And certainly physician coaching has, grown and, so we are gaining more resources. Um, but yeah, it makes sense to me that at that time it felt fairly fairly close to the vest.
Yeah,
For
yeah. I mean, because
people.
we wear the superwoman
Mhm.
cape.
We got
We can
hustle for
handle it.
everything.
We can handle it. We can take care of all of it. We don't have any problems.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're so right. You may share my bias, but I think women physicians in particular, I think we're used to a little more hustle than everybody else, because not only is there, the pressure to be this high performer, but also this high performer who's, kind and a team player in the way women are supposed to be. And, so we may not ask for the support,
Right.
even from our staff as much as, perhaps our male colleagues are
Yeah,
accustomed.
I think you're 100% correct. Yeah, because even in a clinical setting, sometimes we may not. I mean, I know, like, I'll give a perfect example after a delivery. In the
Mhm.
delivery room, I always cleaned up my delivery.
Right.
And then, if I happen to come in behind him, like if, one of my patients delivered precipitously and a male physician had delivered that patient, I
Yeah.
walk in the room,
Walk
he
away.
left all this stuff right there. Someone else needs to clean this
Yeah.
mess up. It's not me.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Or just the male chaperone, the male providers having a chaperone in the clinic room, for, even someone else to, hold the little pap jar.
yes, yes,
Do those little
absolutely.
steps. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I guess just out of curiosity in the work that you do with women physicians, um, how do you help them sort of get going when they are coming to you from that place where you were of sort of reassessing?
So the thing that I tend to start with first is something called the Wheel of Life.
Mm,
And there's several iterations of it, but it either has, I think, 10 or 12, depending on which iteration you're using, areas that it looks at. And so this was actually something that my personal trainer used with me
hmm,
very early on in my process with him. And so it has like finances, relationships, professional, health, fun, spirituality, all of these things are on there. And you're supposed to rate your area, your I'm sorry, your level of satisfaction with each area. And
Mm-hmm.
so if your life is in balance, then it forms a perfect wheel.
Right.
If your life is out of balance, it's like I said,
Spikes.
some kind of crazy looking Pac-Man thingamajig, right?
Yeah.
So so I generally like to start there. Just so because that serves as a really stark visual of where you are, and at least,
Mm-hmm.
what your current level of satisfaction is with a particular area of your life.
Mm. Yeah, I
And
think
so
that's
that
really helpful.
helps you to
Yeah.
identify problem spots that maybe you didn't even think were problem spots, because you think about something like fun. Most people don't think that they're supposed to prioritize fun.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's not true. And when we aren't having fun, when we don't make any space for it, then I think a lot of us just kind of sit and stew in resentment of like, why are they having fun?
Right.
Not appreciating that in some capacity, they've made room for fun. And, we just sit there and judge of like, well, I have all this work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's great. I think those, those little sort of practical exercises can just make a huge difference in just kind of getting people going.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Um, and tell us a little bit, if you will, about the retreat that you have coming up, because I know that part of your work is really sort of creating different opportunities for women physicians to come together.
Right, right. And, it's about having the community as well as working on yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so I call the retreat A Weekend for Me. This upcoming one is scheduled for March of next year, March 24th through the 26th. It will be held in Cambridge, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, so we come together on a Friday evening. It goes from Friday to Sunday afternoon. And it's the time for just kind of to get off of the hamster wheel of your normal life, to step away from it all, have some time to yourself, to
Mm-hmm.
begin to look at where your life is currently and where you want it to be. What are your current priorities? And, because again, life can kind of get away from us. And if you're living the same life, going on the same schedule that you did 5 years ago, maybe that doesn't serve you anymore. And maybe it does. It's perfectly fine if it does. But I still think we need to take time every now and again just to check in with ourselves to see if there are things that we may want to tweak. So that's kind of what it's about. So, we come together, you look at your current priorities, you look at where you'd like to be, make kind of a plan of where you want to go, and then figure out how to get there. So kind of like I talked about my list. I think I use that as a rubric. You make a list of what you want your life to look like, and then figure out how you get from here to there. And of course, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
So, so you start, so we just had, you do short-term goals, but just kind of map out the path, map out a strategic plan to get from where you are to where you'd like to be.
Mm. And doing that in community with other women physicians.
Right. So this will actually be the first retreat. We've done a networking lunch where we did some of these activities, but it was just a 4-hour time frame. So this will be the first weekend long, but the plan is to have a Facebook group, a dedicated Facebook group after, which is kind of an accountability group where we can check in with each other monthly or so to see where we are with our goals and, help to keep us on task.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Thank you for sharing about that. And just to wrap up kind of our time here today, I always ask people, for someone who may be listening and they're experiencing symptoms of burnout, or they're kind of feeling overwhelmed, or just as you described, kind of, I don't recognize my life anymore. What would you want them to know? What advice would you give them?
I would want them to know that they don't have to stay stuck. I think for a lot of us, we feel trapped. At least I can speak for me. I felt trapped. I felt that I had to stay in this job. I had to make this amount of money. I had to live this particular way. I have a new saying that I've adopted that I'm using all the time, which is who says? So who says that I have to live that life? Who says that I have to, work this way? Maybe there are other avenues I can explore. So, what this whole journey has done for me is it's empowered me to take control of my life and to really consider the options and the possibilities. In the past, again, I did what people thought I should do, and in medicine, we had this whole thing laid out for us. You go to med school, you do residency, you take this kind of job, or you do a fellowship, whatever. We have like decades that are already scripted, right? We have decades that are scripted for us. And then we get to attendinghood and it's like, I don't know where to go from here.
Right.
Because no one's grown-ups. But the point is, you have the ability and the power to make your life what you want it to be. And in fact, I would almost say you have the obligation, because you want to enjoy your life. We only get one. So you want to enjoy the time that you have here and make the contributions that you're trying to make and not allow them to steal your life. Because a lot of times we sacrifice ourselves for everyone else. Absolutely. And that's not what it's about. It's about being able to serve others, but also serve yourself and consider yourself and prioritize yourself.
I think that's so powerful. I love the who says question. And I think it's one of many ways to kind of really get into the nitty-gritty of who's giving you permission or blocking something from you, because so much of the time it's just us. It's just ideas that we've adopted along the pathway of that, that journey. And we keep telling ourselves, no, I can't do that. No, this is the way that it's done. Yeah. But when we don't take the moment to stop and say, well, who says? According to who?
Right. It's like we're preconditioned. I always tell people it's like the animals at the zoo. They have those psychological barriers. Those, animals can jump over those barriers any day they get ready, but they don't know. Just like them, we are, powerful beyond our imagination if we just allow ourselves to embrace and harness and use that power.
I love that. So everybody who's out there listening, when your brain starts telling you something, you got to ask, who says? Says who?
Yes, who says?
Oh, I love it. So tell my listeners, if you will, where they can learn more about your retreat and where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me in the Level Up Lady Facebook group. That's where I'm most active. I do also have an Instagram, Level Up Lady Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Sherita Gaskins-Tillett. And then the retreat website is www.aweekendforme.com.
Excellent. I am amazed that you were able to get that domain name.
I love it. I'm so excited to have it. Yeah.
It's great.
Now, if I could only get Google to be able to search it, when I type in A Weekend for Me, it pulls up some of the social media, but not the website. So I have to figure that part out.
Okay. Yeah. And then you got to go hire somebody who's nerdier than we are.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, Sherita, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a great conversation. I think a lot of pearls for everyone. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Megan. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. All right, listeners, that's what we've got for you today. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please check out www.aweekendforme.com and follow Sherita online. And please be sure to share and subscribe to the podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.